guys, and welcome. If you are new here, my name is Ashley with Lavish Photography. I have been a portrait photographer for 12 years now. I shoot primarily high school seniors, but I also do photograph newborns and families as well. Today, I'm going to be talking about the Canon RF mount 100mm f2.8 L lens. This is a macro lens, but I use it for much more than that. But I have been using the EF version of this lens for years and have upgraded to the RF. So we're going to talk a little bit about the differences between the two and give you my full rundown of what I think of the RF 100mm. All right, so here is the lens that I am talking about today. I have had this, I can't not, the control ring is so satisfying to me. So if you hear me, every time I'm holding this on my camera, I'm doing this. I can't help it. So I'm gonna try not to. But here's the lens I'm talking about. This beautiful lens right here. I'm gonna give you a little rundown of some of the specs of this lens. Now, I do want to preface this by saying I am not a techie kind of person. I am a 100% a creative type person. And so I'm not gonna go into super details about all of these specs, but I do want to give you kind of what a professional photographer would look at going into buying a lens. All right, so here's what the outside of the lens looks like. The finish on this is much more matte than the EF version. It has the same switches on here for the focusing distance, auto and manual focus, and the image stabilization on and off. Those are all the same. This has an additional lock switch for the SA control, which I'm gonna talk about a little bit later. Thoughts on this, and just say they're not positive. But anyways, the SA control, you have your focus and of course your control ring. That's kind of a bit about the outside of the lens. So the 100mm was one of the first ones I wanted to get for the RF mount because the EF version of the 100mm macro is the lens that I used about 80% of the time. This was my go-to for portraits, obviously for details and macro shots, but as a portrait photographer, and I shoot a lot outside, this was my go-to lens. It had a special dreamy quality to it. The colors in this were just different for me. I don't know, there's just something magical about this lens. And so I knew I wanted to get the RF version. I didn't like having the adapter on this. One of the biggest improvements of this lens that I would say might be a reason to upgrade if it's in your budget is the focus. So when I would take macro shots, detail shots, ring shots with the EF version, a lot of times I would just switch it to manual focus and dial it in and take several shots because it would never find that focus. It would do a lot of fishing and it would take a while to lock on focus if it would at all. So it had that minimum focusing distance, but for me, the autofocus minimum focusing distance was different. I would have to switch it over to manual if I got too close. This one, however, I don't have to do that. I can get up close to a ring and take a picture. I don't have to search for it. It does it. I touch the screen, that's what I want to focus on, push the button, and it takes the picture. That is the biggest improvement that I would say between these two lenses is that focus up close. So second thing that personally I really love the control ring and I use it to adjust my Kelvin, my white balance. So for me, that's something I really wanted was to have that control ring on the lens. So that was another reason that I went ahead and got it. So between the autofocus being better up close, it also can get closer. So I'm gonna put in a picture here as close as this one go and as close as the other one would go, just so you can see the difference. It may just be a little bit closer, but it definitely makes it feel the subject feel even bigger and you're just like right in it. It just, gorgeous. I took some pictures earlier today, some product photography. These are gonna be straight out of camera, no editing on these, but I took them, same settings, same lighting, side by side. I wanted to see if the magical colors that were in this one are still in this one. And I think that they look very, very similar. So I'm gonna put them up here. Differences that I see in the photos, I would say the RF, it's a tiny bit warmer. Some of the oranges are a little bit more prevalent, but I think that's because this lens is a little bit more contrasty. So I think that the RF version has a little bit more sharpness and it has more contrast. I've noticed that the EF version, some of the pictures look hazy in comparison to the RF version. And again, these are straight out of camera. that can be edited to be more contrast. I'm just showing you what the straight out of camera photo looks like with these two lenses. So the weight of these two, if you look at the EF without the adapter, it is shorter than the RF version. But once you put the adapter on it, they are about the same height. They are very, very similar in weight. They are almost identical when this has the adapter on it. Canon RF has an SA control. Now, what is that? Honestly, when I first got this, I looked into it and I did a bunch of test shots. Basically, it's supposed to change the quality of the bokeh in the background, but honestly, I don't ever use it, and especially in portrait work, I would never use it. If you move it either direction, it affects the sharpness of the part that's in focus as well. You're not gonna get as sharp photo. So I'm kind of ignoring that fact of this lens. I think that there might be somebody that gets use out of it and then it could be useful for, but I use this lens for portraits and for product photography and rings, detail shots, and I honestly will never use it for any of that. I've tested it, I've tried it, and I don't like the way it makes the in focus part look. Okay, so bottom line, if you have the EF version of this lens, do you need the RF version? No, you don't need it. For me, I did, just because of the amount that I use this lens and the fact that I did not want to be using an adapter. I wanted to have the control ring. I personally think it is the best portrait lens out there. I said it, sorry if you disagree. A lot of people love the 85 focal length, but for some reason I've never jived with that one. I've always gone to the 100mm. It's beautiful, it's wonderful, it's expensive, but it's not a $3,000 lens. And I think it does just about everything I want, so. I'm gonna throw in a few pictures here just so you can see what kind of images this produces. Again, the background of the 100mm, stunning. The colors, beautiful. The sharpness, perfect. I don't really have a bad thing to say about this lens if you ignore the SA control. I'm just gonna pretend that wasn't there. I'm not really sure why they included that. I think just because it's something new and different, but I don't think we needed this new and different. All right guys, Lincoln is ready for me to get out of here. So that's gonna wrap it up for this video. If you enjoyed it, please give it a thumbs up. If you haven't already and wanna see future videos, hit that subscribe button down below. I will see you guys next time. Bye. 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 Today, I'm gonna be talking about the RF 100mm 2.8 Macro. Let's try that again. I don't think I'm being very articulate today. Adapted lenses. Today I'm gonna wiggle in my chair. Today I'm gonna be talking about the I'm gonna try to talk.